So with you.
We continue listening to God speak to us from the Gospel in the tradition of Mark.
Glory
to you, Lord.
The Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus. They had noticed that some of the disciples were eating with unclean hands, that is, without ritually washing them. For the Pharisees and the Jewish people in general, they followed the tradition of their ancestors and never eat without washing their arms as far as their elbow. Moreover, they never eat anything from the market without first sprinkling it. There were many other traditions which had been handed down to them, such as washing of cups, pots, and dishes. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples not respect the tradition of our ancestors, but eat their food with unclean hands?" Jesus answered, "How accurately Isaiah prophesied about you hypocrites when he wrote, 'These people honor me with their lips, while their hearts are far from me. They worship me, their worship is worthless. The doctrines they teach are only human regulations.' You disregard God's commandments and cling to human traditions." Jesus summoned the crowd and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and try to understand. Nothing that enters us from the outside makes us impure. It is what comes out of us that makes us impure. If you have ears to hear, hear this." He went on, "It is what comes out of us that makes us unclean. For it is from within, from our hearts, that evil intentions emerge. Fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, malice, deceit, indecency, envy, slander, pride, and folly. All these things come from within and render us impure." This is the gospel, the good news of our salvation.
Praise you, Lord Jesus
By the
Christ.
words of the gospel, may our sins be blotted out.
Amen.
Amen.
Good evening.
Good evening, Father.
Traditions and customs and practices and all those things that we go through our lives keep us on an even keel. Think about your day. Think about from the moment you wake up in the morning until you go to bed. What are those things that you do that you have created so that you can easily get yourself into the day? Especially in the morning. You get out of bed, put on your slipper, put on your robe, put on something, you go to the kitchen, you make the coffee, you sit down, you read the paper. All these things are basically a routine which helps us get into the day. And then by the second cup of coffee, we feel that there is something better than sitting here, and so we get up and we take the shower, we get dressed, and we go out to work, and we do whatever it is that we do. And so we all have customs, we all have traditions. Our religion is all based on tradition. Why do we do it this way? Because we've always done it this way. This is the way it's been done since the early church. Do we have to do it this way all the time? No, but this is our custom, this is our tradition. Unfortunately, what happens is many times that customs and traditions become rules and regulations more than just tradition. Remember that play, Fiddler on the Roof, and the children were starting to go out and doing different things, and he kept on saying tradition, tradition, tradition. And among some people, traditions are all they have. And so we hear tonight in this gospel story the tradition of how the Jewish people washed their hands before they ate. There is a tradition among the Muslims that before they touch the Quran, they wash their hands as a sign of respect for this book, and also as a tradition of becoming pure before you read this book. And so traditions are always something that we follow. We all, as I said, we all have traditions, especially around the holidays. The Christmas tree always goes in that corner. Why? No, because that's where it goes. And you ask yourself, well, why? And then you think, well, you know, what happens if we put it in this corner? No, it's always been in that corner. The wreath always goes on this side, and you know, and so we all have our traditions, especially around the holidays. We all have, you know, special foods. It's a tradition for us to eat a pork on New Year's Day because it brings us good luck for the year. A lot of people eat Chinese food because they're too hungover from the night before. So we all have traditions. There's a story that you may have heard, and I may have told you this, of a woman. She was preparing a ham for Easter. And she took a knife and she cut off part of the top part and the bottom part of the ham on both sides, and she put it in the pan. And her daughter said, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off the ham before you put it in the pan?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "That's the way my mother always did it, and the ham always came out good." Okay. So the grandmother was still alive, as it had, and she goes to her grandmother and says, "Grandma, I was watching Mom prepare the ham for Easter, and she cuts off both ends of the ham. Why is that?" She said, "I don't know. My mother always did it. And the ham always came out good, so I guess that's the way you do it." Well, as luck would have it, the great-grandmother was still alive. And she goes and she says, "Great Grammy, why do Grandma and Mom cut the ends off the ham?" They always said it was like Ma says that her mother did it, her Grandma said that you always do it, but why? She said, "Sweetie, in that day I didn't have a pan large enough for the ham. And so I had to cut the ends off so it would fit in the pan that I had." So traditions may come out of a practical need, but sometimes the traditions become more law than tradition. And the only reason why that Christmas tree has to go in that corner is because that's the only place that there's an outlet so that we can plug in the lights. But that's not important, you know, that's where it goes. As I said, our religion is basically tradition. It is a ritual in which has been established to help us to worship God. And we who celebrate Mass every day sometimes, or go to Mass every day, or attend church on the weekend, we can get caught up in this ritual, in this sense of this is the way it's done and that's the way it is. And if I fulfill the ritual, then I'm okay. But as Jesus tells us today, that's not the point. Why do you wash your dishes? Why do you wash your cups? Why do you wash your hands? Why do you sprinkle the food? Because it's a sign of internal purity. I wish to make myself pure before I do this. In mosques, the men wash their feet before they go in. It's a sign of purity. I don't want to defile this holy spot. And so sometimes that which was of a necessity becomes a tradition. Unfortunately, that tradition becomes a law. And if we fulfill that law, regardless of where our heart is, regardless of where our spirit is, we have accomplished what we are supposed to do. And sometimes we can get into that. I see in my years as a priest and having dealt with other religions, I remember one time that a rabbi, and I don't want to say that this is a thing that happens with all rabbis, but this particular guy was going through a service, and it was like let's get through this service as quickly as possible so I can move on and do whatever else I have to do. And sometimes we can get into that, as long as I fulfill the tradition, as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, it's going to be all right. As long as I sprinkle my food, as long as I wash my hands up to my elbows, I'm okay. But why? Why? I wish to make myself pure. And that's why Jesus quoted the prophet Isaiah. These people worship me, they give me praise through lip service. Through lip service, but their hearts are far from me. Traditions, my brothers and sisters, are good. They help us to regulate our life, our year. And if you look at your life and take a look at the things that you do, many times it's based on tradition. It's based on the tradition that has been handed down from our forefathers and foremothers. And that helps us because we have to know where we have come from. It is important to know our history if we are to move into an uncertain future. And that tradition is the lifeline which we must hold on to as we move into this future which is so uncertain. But it's okay because I know who I am. I know where I come from. I know my traditions, and because of that, I have that strength to hold on to that lifeline and move into the future. Whether that be through our society, whether that be through our church, whether that be through our family, it doesn't matter. I have this lifeline, I have this knowledge. I know who and what I am. Because of that, I am strong. And because of that, I am able to move into the future. So we take that and putting it up a step and bring it into our religion. I know the traditions of my faith. I know the traditions of the seasons of the year, that during Lent we're supposed to have a sacrifice. During Advent we're supposed to be waiting. During ordinary time we celebrate those times that we've come out of, celebrating the reality of Christ in our lives. But if my heart is far from God, my ritual becomes, as a professor of mine saying, nothing more than empty tribal ritualism. And that's what our faith becomes. St. Paul says we become a sounding gong. Empty. Empty. Our rituals are complete. We can do them to the finest. We can have bells and smells and beautiful vestments, and we can carry on and we can make it a wonderful experience. But if our hearts aren't in us, if our hearts are not with God, if we are not doing this because of our worship, it's all a play. And we might as well be celebrating this thing down at the Broward Center for the Performing Arts, because that's basically all it is. It's an art form which we have established to make us feel good. My brothers and sisters, in our religion, our faith is not that. It cannot be that. Because once the lights go down on the play, it's over. As they say in opera, once the fat lady's sung, that's it. Everybody goes home. But our faith is forever. Our faith is going to enable us through this ritual to deepen our relationship with Christ, and therefore leave this church tonight more united with our God and strengthened to go into that future, because I have a lifeline of faith that is based on 2,000 years of men and women who have given their lives, who have celebrated, who have sung, who have passed this faith down to us today. And because of that history, I know who I am. I am a Christian. I am one redeemed by the God of creation, and I am precious in His sight. Because of that, that lifeline that I have enables me to move forward into this future, whatever that might be. Maybe someday we'll get an electrician to put a plug on the other side of the room so we can move that Christmas tree. But if not, oh well, it's just a tradition.
Tradition.
God bless.